Welcome to the video edition of The Fourth Curtain, featuring this week's interview. Catch the extended audio version with Alex and Aaron's commentary wherever you get your podcasts. On with the show.
Welcome to the podcast, friends. Today is such a treat. We get to hang out with the incredibly accomplished game designer, Kim Swift. Hey, Kim.
Hi.
Kim was the lead designer of Portal, one of my very favorite games of all time. I remember when the Orange Box came out. I was in Chicago, and I think I played through Portal specifically pretty much all night. I don't know if it was all night, but like a straight shot.
Yeah, you can finish it in 3 hours or so. So
yeah, and I had never played anything quite like it before, and it was oozing with flavor. So great. Kim also worked on Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, Star Wars Battlefront II as a level design director. She was partner in her own studio at Airtight Games, which I think was where we probably first met.
Probably. That was a long time ago.
Wasn't it?
It was a long time ago.
Has had senior design positions at just a few small little companies like Amazon, EA, Google. Recently just coming off a stint as head of creative at Xbox Game Studios.
Publishing. Xbox Game Studios publishing.
Publishing. Okay, we'll be very specific there. It is on the advisory board of Women in Games International. You do a lot of stuff. So great to have you with us, Kim. Great to see you. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. And I forgot to read my joke from the intro, which is
no. There was a joke.
Well, I was trying to come up with something about like having your cake and eat it too, or the cake's no longer allowed. I wanted to make a cake joke.
Yep. Fair.
But
you could save it for the end.
Okay, we'll do that for dessert. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
Welcome, Kim.
So, let's see. I'm not sure exactly where to start.
Okay.
But I have a few things I'm really curious about.
Okay.
And maybe I'll ask you first about. I had this weird thing happen to me 2 years ago.
Okay.
I go on spring break every year with the family. And we're boring people, so we just go to the same place every year. And we're on the West
Coast.
We're on the West Coast, so that the easy, fun thing for us to do is we go to Hawaii, and
He'll be back.
Okay, I was about to say, I'm like, did he pause for you?
Listeners, we were in such a great groove, and my internet died, so I'm back. Any case, I was
snacks.
I had to refill my coffee, I'm sure. But every year we go on spring break, and we go to Hawaii because it's pretty close to the West Coast here. And 2 years ago, we show up the same place we've been going to for like 10 plus years, and we walk into the Valve spring break
extravaganza.
Extravaganza, yeah. And at first I was like, oh no, the industry is crashing my holiday. And but then I was like, oh, this is actually kind of nice because the hotel is basically half empty. But it reminded me how like everything that I know about Valve is super interesting, yet I think I know very little. Had you worked there, what was it like?
I don't know what it's like now. So for the record, I haven't worked at Valve since 2009. So
I'm sure nothing has changed. It's
been a couple of years. I felt was interesting. I mean, I think, they're really well known for this idea of, a flat hierarchy where everybody gets to work on whatever they want to. Like, some of that's true. And some of it's also like there are people there that are kind of calling the shots of like, hey, here's what we want to look at as far as, our 5-year, our 10-year outlook. Like, what are we really trying to focus on and what's important to the company? I don't know what that looks like now. I'm sure it's a lot of like, make Steam great and continue to print money. But it was an interesting time for sure, particularly coming right out of school and working at Valve. And so at that time, we didn't really have any sort of conception of what is it like to work on games in a professional capacity, other than we're going to make our student projects and pay money to make projects. Like, oh, we get to make money now doing this thing that we love doing. So yeah, I don't know. It was interesting. I think that's all I can really sort of say. It was a lot of fun.
Okay.
It was really interesting. And
did they buy the game that you made? What was it called?
Narbacular Drop?
Drop. Yeah, I can never say the word.
No. So the way that actually worked. So for those folks that are listening that don't know the story of the origins of Portal, it was based on a student project that myself and other folks like Jeep and Dave and Paul, Garrett, and Realm, we were working on this project in DigiPen called Narbacular Drop. We made it over the course of our senior year. And then there's a job fair that happens every year at DigiPen. I think they actually just had their senior job fair last weekend. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it, but we had ours. A couple people from Valve stopped by, including Robin Walker of like TF2 fame. He took a look at the game, was like, "This is really interesting. I don't like the art, but like, you should come and talk to us." And we're like, okay, it's great, cool. And so a couple weeks later, I reached out to Robin, emailed them, and they said, "Hey, come on in. We'll have people take a look at your game." And I'm like, excellent. I thought it was going to be maybe, I don't know, like 1 or 2 people taking a look and being like, "Good job, kiddos." But Gabe ended up coming in with 14 other people, and we're 20-year-old kids straight out of school going like, what is happening? So we run through the demo. Jeep Barnett, who's one of the engineers, was playing. I was doing the spiel and like talking through what's going on, and then Gabe says, "I need to do something and I will be right back." And we're like, okay. So he leaves, and we continue to talk about the game, talking to like designers and engineers there. And Gabe sends someone for us to come and bring us to a conference room. We're like, all right, cool. We get in there, and they offer us jobs to come in and basically make Portal, what will become Portal. Now, the way that DigiPen's way it works as far as IP ownership is that everything that you make at school on their equipment, on their software, etc., is owned by DigiPen.
Well, that's interesting.
So,
I didn't know that. That's very interesting.
How standard is it? Do you have any idea if it's still the case today? I'm just curious how standard that is. I'm pretty sure USC has a different policy based on conversations with folks there.
How standard it is. I just
know
it is
very interesting though.
Circa 2005, that's how it is.
Okay.
To my knowledge, I think it's still that way. But and that was sort of my first taste of what is IP law at the age of like 21. I was like, okay, well, how does IP law actually work? And so what I ended up doing was talking with like Claude Comer, who is like the head of DigiPen, and some other folks on faculty, and sort of worked out what we could quote unquote take and what had to leave behind. So the entire code base had to stay with DigiPen, which is fine. And then we had to leave sort of the art assets and the general story and the wrapper of the game. However, we could take the concept of portals, because portals have existed in games for a really long time. They've existed in media for a really long time. So putting an actual like IP stamp on the concept of portals is really hard to argue in court. So they're like, okay, you can take that. And we're like, great. So we rebuilt everything from scratch while we were at Valve, which is fine because we were operating on we had made our own engine at DigiPen because it's part of the course curriculum. So it was a little janky. So we're like, leave that behind and we'll work in Source Engine. Yeah, okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
And then we would have had to redo everything anyway. So we left the code behind and then, reworked what the IP wrapper was for this portal concept and put it in the Half-Life world. In some little corner somewhere else of the Half-Life world, and worked through, what assets did we want to build with that already sort of existed at Valve.
Oh, that's cool.
Very cool.
So you bashed it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
a
really
lot of the
cool.
materials that exist within it are kit bashed from Half-Life assets. Because at the time, we thought we were just going to be a tech demo. So we were told you have 6 months to work on this. And then we're just going to ship it on Steam as a quick little tech demo and see if people like it. And we're like, okie doke. And then our timeline kind of just kept getting pushed back for various reasons until it was decided that we would just ship in Orange Box.
That's awesome.
So
I love kit bash. That's cool.
Yeah. So you go in. I'm stuck on this one detail, which
I
think is really interesting. You go in, you have this meeting, and it's like a couple of people, and then all of a sudden, 15 folks plus Gabe.
Yeah,
lawyers
show up.
No lawyers. No lawyers.
No lawyers.
At the time.
But I'm in hindsight. And I think in the spirit of pay it forward to the kids coming up today who are listening, that's a good sign, right? That's a good sign when you walk in to do a demo and then all of a sudden the room's packed and the CEO.
Yeah, I mean, at the time we were all having a panic attack, but in hindsight, yeah, obviously a really good thing. But at the time we're like, oh crap. This is
That's
a lot
amazing.
Of people.
Yeah.
So Aaron and I talk often about do you need to go to college? Yeah, I went to college. My kids are going to college. Well, two of the three, and third one I think will go when she gets there. And I think for me, I needed to go to college because I was just too young to be let loose in the world. But we've met many people through this podcast who didn't or took a different path, and just so many different paths. But it does sound like one thing that it's really great that came out of at least your experience at DigiPen was the exposure, like the opportunity to do a group project with other like-minded folks, and the exposure to Valve in this case, but industry as part of your
Valve is weird too,
school
right?
journey.
Because it's like DigiPen is like a direct path to Nintendo. That was why I wanted to go to DigiPen at the time, at least in the late 90s and early 2000s. Is that why you went?
I just knew I wanted to make video games, period. And I was like, how do I even get started making video games? And it was like, oh, there's a school where you can go and do it. And I convinced my parents that I'm going to go do this. And they're like, all right, cool. Have fun, kid. So for me, it was less about working at Nintendo and more like, I just want to make video games.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
How did you go ahead, Eric. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to see if the DigiPen is owned by Nintendo or is it?
It's not. So
it's not,
Claude Comer, I forget what he used to do at Nintendo, but there is a Nintendo connection.
Yeah.
And in fact, when I went to DigiPen, the school, they have a really nice building now, but when I went, the school was literally over the Nintendo warehouse.
That's more than a connection.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not owned by Nintendo, but there is a very, very strong connection with the school.
What did they make you take a common core of classes that included packing shipping boxes in the warehouse 101. Burning CDs for
translating manuals. One of our courses was a Game Boy Advance class, though we were like coding cool. For like a Game Boy Advanced emulator. Some of our classes.
Okay, well, rewind a little bit. Saying you said something interesting there. You went to DigiPen because you knew you wanted to make games, and you must have been probably the age at which you go to college, 17, 18, 19, something like that.
Yep, I was 17.
How did you know that at 17? How did you know you wanted to make video games?
I hyper fixated, and I was just like, oh, this is the thing I want to go and do. I grew up playing games with my dad. Like our family time was like, oh, let's play like Nintendo together and like take turns like with the controller. And so it always just left this impression on me that like this interactive medium where you can feel like you are a part of the action as opposed to this passive observer really resonated with me, and I just got in my head like, oh, this is what I need to go and do this. Did I have any like rational reason? No, none whatsoever. It's just like, oh,
no
clearly I need to go and do this because I was a teenager and I was just like, well, obviously this is what I have to go and do. And
what were some of those games you were? Well, I was just curious. What are some of the games you were playing like when you were in,
younger? So I played a lot of stuff on Super Nintendo. So like Super Mario World. My favorite was Link to the Past, Zelda Link to the Past, Legend of Zelda. And then what else did I really love? Like Chrono Trigger.
Another great game.
Just like all of the classic Final Fantasies, so 5, 6, 7.
Was your dad the one who was responsible for like bringing the Nintendo into the house and maybe curating?
It was
sounds like your dad's pretty cool.
Dad. I had asked for Christmas for like a Game Boy so I could like play it in the car and stuff like that. And he instead brought home a Super Nintendo.
What a good
and
father.
Then he played on it for like at least 60% of the time. He was the one that was actually playing it, and I was just like, okay.
Well, what was
beg to like have a turn?
Was like what did your dad do? Was your dad like for a living? Was it anything intersecting like technology or a creative field or something different?
He used to work, so he's retired now. He used to work for Exxon. He started as a chemical engineer and then ended up in marketing, I believe.
That's
by the
Houston.
end.
That's the Houston connection.
Yeah, that's the Houston connection.
Yeah.
Okay, this was in Houston. Okay, this is you guys were bonding over Houston while I was trying to get my internet to work. Got it. Okay. All right. So you're growing up with you have a Nintendo. You have a gamer dad. Were you doing anything like were you artistically inclined? Were you learning how to code? Anything like that? Or were you playing?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I was definitely more of an artist and loved drawing, sculpting. I got into Photoshop super early and was like teaching other people how to use Photoshop. And at some point, when I decided that I wanted to go to school to learn how to play video games, DigiPen at the time, as I was telling Aaron earlier while you were offline, there were 2 programs at the time. One was an associate's in art, and then the other was a bachelor's in what is essentially computer science with a specialization in graphics programming, but they call it real-time interactive simulation. And I was talking with my parents, and I initially was thinking, okay, well, maybe I'll go to the art program. And both my mom and my dad were like, hey, if you're going to go do this stuff, we think it would be better if you got a computer science degree. Like, we think it would be like safer for you as a fallback
in case this whole video game thing doesn't pan out. Yeah.
You might be better off. And I was like, okay. So that's why I went into the engineering program. And then while I was doing that, I realized I really loved design, which in many ways is like this intersection between art and engineering, right? And so I sort of had this Venn diagram in the middle.
Makes sense.
That's cool. Did you learn to code in DigiPen or before?
Oh, yeah.
You
Well, I took so my senior year of high school, I only had like 3 classes because I moved around a lot. And because of that, I was ahead in credits. And so I really only had a couple of classes I had to do at my senior year of high school. So I was like, okay, well, with that extra time, I will play way too much EverQuest. And then I will also go to community college and take some courses in C++. So I did 2 semesters of that. And what I learned in those 2 semesters of community college were surpassed in like 2 months at DigiPen because their curriculum is hardcore.
Yeah.
So I was like feeling really good when I started, and then very quickly was like, oh, I'm in trouble.
That's awesome.
You did okay though.
Yeah, I graduated. I did all right.
You did okay. All right. Well, so the idea for Portal originated with Narbuncular Drop. Did I pronounce it right? I too have.
It's narbacular.
Narbacular.
It's a made-up word that sounds a lot like carbuncular. It's not a real word, so don't worry about it.
But so how did that mechanics / the design there like come about?
Yeah, so I was working with the same group of folks over a couple of years, and we were kind of building off of the hacked together engine that we had built while we were at DigiPen. And Dave Kircher was playing around with this idea of, oh, well, we've got these 2 portals that are interconnected. And Jeep and I were working together to try to figure out, well, okay, this is really cool. We want to use this. What do we do with it now? And so we already had some ideas for puzzle games and then sort of put it all together. And we were doing this during summer. So we kind of hit the ground running when we started our senior year, which would have been 2005. No,
so
2004.
Started with just this mechanic idea, and then built on top of that. And then I imagine that there's probably some sort of like iterative additive through line from that game through to Portal, where now it's in this kind of world that gets some world development around it, and more levels and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, we started completely from scratch. Other than we had the concept of, well, we've got these 2 interconnected portals. You can see in one, out the other, go in through one, out the other. And so we started from the ground up while we were at Valve, really thinking about, okay, where do we want this to be? We figured the easiest thing to do and asked if it would be okay if we put it in the Half-Life world and use the already existing assets, because we had like 2 artists. So we were like, are we going to build everything from scratch? Probably not. And I was also doubling as environment art too at the time, because again, 2 artists. And so they were focused more on making props and like the gun and everything like that existed in the world that we had to build from scratch. And then I was kind of kit bashing a bunch of stuff together for the environment. I definitely want to give a shout out to Randy Lundeen, who helped me so much to like put together what does the art kit look like. And he's this crazy talented environment artist that worked on the Half-Life games. He was so awesome. And there was another guy,
Right on.
Sean Guthrie, who showed me how to actually use the physics engine components of Source Engine. So like those two guys I leaned on so much for like, what am I doing? I want to make this thing. How? So yeah, those guys were great.
Awesome. So I'm guessing this story has probably been told a million times. But
can always tell it again.
All the like the flavor bits, the cake is a lie, and the kind of the storyline and the music, even
the wall stuff. I love that stuff.
Yeah,
little notes on the wall.
How did that get to be?
A combination of silliness and not having a lot of resources. So we were the experimental project. Like, though I could ask for help on like, hey, I don't know how this works. How do I do this? The team was only 7 people, really, that were actually doing implementation. So I was the only level designer on the project. So every level that exists in that game was touched by me, because everybody else was working on code or art. And the cake is a lie is a joke. Started as me actually just bringing in cake all the time. There's a bakery that I went to all the time when I was at DigiPen because they had really good like char-siu bao, like barbecue pork buns. And so I would go there all the time, and then I would buy myself a slice of cake as like a little treat. And so I just like being morale support, and so I would bring in cake all the time, whether it was like I just felt like it or it was someone's birthday or whatever. And so we had cake a lot. And in fact, the cake that's in the game exists in real life at a place called Regent Bakery and Cafe that's in like Redmond. It's like the border of like Bellevue and Redmond in Washington.
Okay. Man, I wish I knew that when I was in Redmond.
It's their Black Forest cake, which is my favorite flavor of cake.
Okay.
And so yeah,
Solid
we
cake.
actually it was
What's Black Forest cake? Is it like
it's chocolate
you don't know Black
and
Forest
cherries.
cake?
No, I've never had it before.
It's delicious.
Yeah.
Chocolate and
I'm gonna
cherries.
have to have it.
Yeah, so it's like
good.
chocolate cake with like a vanilla whip and then like cherries in it.
Yeah,
Oh.
Aaron, it's filled with
So good.
gluten and sugar. You should not eat that cake. Don't eat that.
I'm like gluten free.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Go
it's like-
eat a rice cake, Aaron. No
I'm
gluten
sure there's
there.
like I've had some pretty decent like gluten-free cake.
Oh, stop! Like my wife made brownies made out of black beans. And
Yeah.
everyone's like, yeah, these are pretty good. And it's like, they're not real brownies.
I would
Did
eat
y'all
that.
celebrate with that cake? Like, did y'all do anything with that cake? Like, buy it and like eat it? And
I mean,
you know, of course, I'm assuming.
many times.
Yeah.
All right, so you were bringing in cake a lot.
Yeah, I was bringing cake a lot. And then Eric Wolpaw, who's the writer, and I had this routine where, for whatever reason, I've always been an early riser. I'm like up at like 5 a.m. I've always been like that. And Eric was also an early riser. And so we would both be in the office at around 7 o'clock. We would like have coffee together. I would go over, hey, here's the levels that I made yesterday, and let's have you take a look at them and we can figure out how to dovetail the story into what's going on in the game. And we were talking and we were trying to figure out, okay, you know, with the Gladys character, this robot is trying to understand human beings and doesn't quite understand human beings, but understands the concept of like leading with a reward, you know, and this concept of a stick versus a carrot. So we were trying to figure out like, well, what would be a good carrot that she thinks that would be something that would really motivate people. And so it was the cake.
We'll be right back. If you like what you're hearing, like and follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. And now, a word from our sponsors. Great games aren't just made, they're crafted. Pixel by pixel, idea by idea. Amber doesn't just develop games, Amber forges the future of play, one project at a time. From the magic makers at Disney to the tech giants at Amazon and Warner Media, the biggest names in the industry trust Amber to turn their wildest ideas into reality. Why? Because the talented teams at Amber believe in pushing every boundary, breaking every mold, and having a bit of fun while they're at it. Need a partner who knows the game and plays to win? Amber has the talent, the passion, and a global network that's ready to roll. So let's skip the loading screen and get straight to the action. Discover how Amber can power up your next project at amberstudio.com. Do you want your game to live forever? To supercharge it with immense powers of endless content, a buzzing gamer community, immortality, and coin? CurseForge for Studios, an exclusive service for visionary game developers, allows you to add safe, cross-platform mods to your game and enjoy all the benefits of user-generated content without any of the risks. With CurseForge for Studios, you can harness the creativity of our 165,000 devoted creators and the traffic of 43 million monthly gamers. You can also level up with premium mods and grant your game new revenue streams. Trusted by AAA studios, CurseForge for Studios is an immortality potion for your game. Enter studios.curseforge.com and join the UGC era. Leveling up your game dev career but not sure where to start?
Maybe you're trying to break into the industry, looking to connect with other people who are making games.
Consider joining the International Game Developers Association, the IGDA, the world's largest nonprofit member-driven professional association serving all individuals who create games.
I was in the IGDA in Chicago, met a lot of people. Great way to network.
The IGDA exists to support and empower game developers around the world in achieving fulfilling and sustainable careers.
Discounts,
Educational and advocacy-based resources,
mentorship,
and solidarity across 160-plus chapters.
To join the IGDA, visit igda.org/membership and use the code IGDA 4th Curtain 15, no spaces there,
To get 15% off 1- and 2-year memberships, as well as a student membership.
Joining the IGDA is a great move for your career, and as a nonprofit supporting everyone making games, it's a great move for the whole community. Join today. Hey listeners, it's Alex from the 4th Curtain.
And Darren here. We want to give a quick shout out to the team at High Vibe PR.
High Vibe PR is our boutique communications firm. They're all about companies and brands defining the future of gaming, entertainment, and culture.
Look, when you're doing something big, you need the right people to help you tell your story. And High Vibe PR, they're the best at making it happen.
Absolutely. They've helped us at Look North World level up our messaging, connect to the right audiences, and stay ahead of the curve in this ever-changing industry.
So, if you're looking for a PR partner who gets gaming and entertainment like no one else, check them out at highvibepr.com.
That's highvibepr.com. Go give them a look. You won't regret it.
And now, back to the show.
And we were like, well, okay, the people want to do things to get cake. And so it sort of became this through line where Gladys is trying to bribe you to do things so you can get cake.
And why'd you choose that cake, like, of all the cakes? Just your favorite
Because it's
one?
delicious.
Cake.
It's my favorite cake. It's my favorite cake.
We covered that.
Because why not? I mean, it's pretty looking. You know, it's got the chocolate
Yeah.
shavings on the outside
Yeah.
and cherries, and it's also
I
delicious.
love that. There's a few things in there that are great. One thing that I really like is that some of the great outcomes were the result of like constraints, or like you didn't have a whole art team, so your choice was to kit bash existing stuff. And
That's my favorite.
if you could do anything in the world, you'd probably make a whole new environment. But that choice, I think, ended up being a great one.
Yeah. And Gladys was a disembodied voice for most of the game because we didn't think we would have time to build her and have her exist as a real animated character that would follow you around or that you could see throughout the game. And so a lot of the things that people are like, oh, that was such a cool thing, really came from this scarcity mindset where we were like, well, yeah, we don't have time for that. Because as I mentioned before, the timeline kept moving. And so we thought, okay, we have 6 months tech demo release. And then we were told, oh, no, you guys are doing a really good job. How about you give it another 6 months? We were like, okay, cool. So then we would we're like, okay, we have a year. That's still not really enough time with our tiny team to make a fully animated character that, it's got lip flapping and all that stuff. So we're like, yeah, we'll just disembodied voice. Because that's about when we decided, we need a story. Because after that 6-month mark, we realized that through playtesting that people thought this was really cool, but wanted a little bit more of something that pulls them through the game and compels them. When we were like, okay, obviously this needs a story if it's no longer a tech demo. And that's when we got Eric Wolpaw to join our team because he was looking for a project at the time.
Nice. I love that phrase, scarcity mindset. Is that a real phrase or did you just make that up just right there?
No, it's a real phrase.
It's a real phrase. I like it.
It's a real thing.
All right. Well, so game comes out and I looked this up. I think Portal is still like number 23 on the 100 greatest games of all time, according to IGN.
Wow, that's great.
That's awesome. But Alex also froze again.
My question though was basically the game comes out. What was the reception like? I mean, I think I know what the reception was like, but what was your reaction? What that period of time and like in your life and the game came out is this thing that started when you were in college, your first gig, and kaboom.
Super kaboom.
Yeah. We did not predict that in the slightest chance. We were like, basically when it went out the door, we figured no one would play it. Like, yeah, it's on the orange box, but you've got Half-Life 2 Episode 2 and Team Fortress 2. Why would anyone play this little weird game? So we were like, basically like, well, as long as people don't like absolutely hate it, then cool. We made something and that's really awesome and good job everyone and yay, we did it. We made a game. And then it blew up and we were all like, this is a joke, right? Are we being punked? What's going on? So yeah, it was not something that we ever predicted. And I don't think it really hit me until probably March and GDC like the following year, because it came out in November. So the following year, Eric Wolpaw and I decided to do a postmortem of the game, and we had the largest room, and it was packed to the brim, and there were people lined up in the hallway, and they were like turning people away, and that was sort of when it clicked, and I was like, oh, okay, this was really popular, wasn't it? Oh, okay, I really need to nail this talk because people are paying attention. That's really strange. So yeah, it was definitely a huge shock, I think, to all of us on the team.
Did your parents understand? Like, did they play the game? Did they understand how popular it was?
They had the internet, so yes, they understood how popular it was. I know my dad was super proud. He was super excited that this weird video game making thing actually turned out okay in the end, and that I was employed. And I know they saved like magazines and stuff that I was in and interviews that I did. And I was like, oh, please don't do that. But okay. So yeah, it was, they definitely understood, like, okay, you did it, kid. Good job.
Good.
That's cool.
My parents were, I'm assuming, older, and they were not really on the internet. So they they would always, I think, scratch their head a little bit about,
Did you have to like show them your bank statement and be like, look, I'm doing okay.
Everything's okay.
At some point, I stopped. I stopped asking them for money. They started asking me for money.
And they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah. Things have turned around. It's good."
After Halo 2.
Yes. All right. Well, so okay. So after Portal comes out, like what did you start doing next? Because I know you worked on Left 4 Dead, but I know there was also a Portal 2. So, like, what was the sort of the next stop in the journey?
So after Portal 1 shipped, and the rest of the Orange Box shipped, basically everybody was dead inside across Valve, because it was an entire huge effort to get Orange Box out the door. And so after, they didn't have a huge QA department. It was like us doing QA. So we were like QAing in shifts. And so we were all very tired. And then we took time, I think, as an entire company to do basically game jams and like experiment on making a bunch of cool things. So we did that for a few months, and then Portal 2 started. I wanted to go learn more from Randy, and he ended up going to Left 4 Dead 1. So I went there and was doing level design and environment art. And then that was an interesting project because it wasn't a from scratch Valve project. So they had bought the IP rights from Turtle Rock Studios. And so the game was kind of halfway done. And the goal was to like shape it up, make sure everything was working, add some new levels, polish art assets, etc. And then get that out the door. And then Left 4 Dead 2 started pretty much immediately after. And the goal was, we're going to ship this game in a year. Ready, set, go.
Huh. And that was sort
of
that work?
Which was, it was bananas. Like, given Valve time, done. Like, to the day, I believe we did Left 4 Dead 2 in a year.
Wow. And was that was the Source engine?
Yeah. Valve only uses Source Engine.
And Turtle Rock was using it? Is that?
Yeah. Okay. They had made a mod, and when it initially started, Mike Booth was the guy that initially started working on it. He made a mod where it was like you with guns, like a small group of people with guns, and then everybody else was just a dude with a knife. So you were like fighting hundreds of dudes with knives, just to see like how does that dynamic feel, and then they eventually became zombies.
Wow, yeah, that game was cool.
Right on. Did when you were at Valve, did you go on any of the spring break trips?
I went on.
Did they do that back then?
They did.
Did they have snacks? Alex wants to know.
They did. I went on a cruise.
What?
Yeah.
That's cool.
They did a cruise 1 year, and we left from Galveston, Texas.
Yeah.
And then we went down to like Central America. So we like went to like Belize and Roatan.
Oh, wow.
And I can't remember where
Sounds
else.
Nice. This is like a big ad for Valve right here. Okay. All right. Well, so after the Left 4 Dead games, you left Valve.
I did. Yeah. Is that a question?
Like, what?
I guess I didn't put a question mark at the end of that.
Why?
True. That is correct. Yep.
But did you end up at EA after Valve?
No.
No.
So after Valve, so shipped Left 4 Dead 2, and I was like, I want to see what else exists. Because one thing about me is that I am endlessly curious, and my career has done a weird trajectory just because I'm chasing the things that interest me. And so I wanted to see what existed outside of Valve in the industry. And so I left. I was talking to Ed Freeze, who you've had on your show. And he said, hey, I'm on the board of this company, Airtight Games. If you go there, you can have your own team, make a game. What do you say? And I was like, all right, sure. I just say yes to stuff. Sounds great.
Well, it's pretty convincing.
Yes,
I'm sure it's a longer conversation.
He's
than
incredibly
that,
convincing. I mean, I was talking to other folks, like I was chatting with folks at Bungie, for example, of like, hey, maybe I go to Bungie after Valve. And so ended up going to Airtight, and I put together a small team of, how many were we? 15, I think. And made a game called Quantum Conundrum, which was another like physics-based puzzle game, because I was like, oh, I want to make another one of these because it's fun. And so the concept of that game was that you had control over 4 different dimensions: fluffy, heavy, reverse gravity, and slow. And you could turn those dimensions on and off at will. And it was all done real time. So typically when you're like going through dimensions, it's not necessarily a real time reaction. It's like, oh, I'm going into another room and it's a quote unquote different dimension. This had everything loaded into memory. So you could just switch everything. So all of the physics changed, the lighting changed, all the materials changed, different properties. And so made that game, and it was fun. Did pretty well.
That's awesome. Well, was that a little bit more? I mean, it sounds like it was smaller company, more kind of entrepreneurial. Did you have similar sort of constraints of like, well,
you have
I
this much money
within this? Yeah. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. We
scarcity mindset.
Scarcity mindset was definitely my early career. So I think the thing that was different for me, where like Valve is like, they have all the money in the world. If they decide that they want to do something, they can do it, right?
Like go to Belize, no problem. Let's go.
Yeah, no problem. Let's all just go. And with working at Airtight, it was the first sort of experience of, oh, you're working for a publisher and you need to go and get publishing money. And so a lot of my time was like going to different publishers or investment companies and things like that, being like, I would like money, please. Thank you. And with Quantum Conundrum, we had put together a demo of essentially like how all of this would work. And we were shopping it around to quite a number of companies. And then we ended up getting a thumbs up from Square Enix, which at the time had their USA branch. And so they said, okay, yeah, we'll do it. Initially, it was supposed to be a 3-game deal. And then when we were like 3/4 of the way through the second piece of the game, after Quantum Conundrum 1 shipped, the US was shut down. So Square Enix was like, we're going to close down USA. And I was like,
I remember
crap.
That. They had an office down here in SoCal near in El Segundo. I remember going over there. Yeah, that sucks. But I guess that's
it
kind
does
of...
suck because the second one was cool. One of the things that we did was we made it so you could essentially punch holes in the dimension in the world, and so it was like a almost dynamic platforming where you're like, oh, I need to get over there. I'm just gonna punch a hole through this wall or through this area to be able to connect spaces together, and it was kind of a mind trip.
But
it's never going to see the light of day.
Oh well.
That's working in the game industry.
Yeah,
so many things never see the light of day.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the same with the punch the hole in the wall thing too. Was that your first experience basically having to pitch Like,
Yeah,
I mean, it
absolutely.
sounded like you did a demo day to like sort of get into a Valve, but this was like actually, okay, we're going to go and pitch for money. What did you learn out of that process?
Pitching is terrible.
Yeah,
It's
okay.
painful. I started going gray. That was like my first gray hairs, was doing pitches and trying to scrounge up money. That I will say, so Ed Freeze was the guy that taught us how to do this. So like, he really did an amazing job of kind of showing me like, hey, this is how you can articulate a concept clearly and concisely. And here's the narrative that you need to draw through your entire presentation. Here's how you bookend, like on a positive note. Here's how you sell the product. Here's how you sell yourselves as a team, etc. I learned so much from him that even though I'm not necessarily like going out and doing game pitches anymore, it's been really invaluable just for how do I talk about things in a way that is engaging and interesting and informative.
Yeah, that's I don't know if they did any of this at DigiPen. I would assume they do it now, but like that the whole process of like, and I'll say the word selling, but it's really like, how do you communicate your ideas? It's like, how do you get people excited about what you want to do? That's so critical. I think some people are good at it, some people are not, and it makes a huge difference. In what you end up getting access
practice. A lot of it's practice, to be perfectly honest. Like, just you got to do it over and over and over again. Like the first time you pitch your game, it's probably going to be terrible. But after you've done it like 25 times, great, no problem.
Yeah, find somebody you can pitch to who will tell you that it's terrible, and then say, "I didn't like this, this, and this. Try it this way." Like Ed. That's great feedback to get.
Yeah. I mean, like in thinking about publishers, no one ever said this is terrible. It was just more like, we're never going to call you back. And then we took that as a hint. We were like, got it. Also, this was like 2009, 2010, right? We had just had another delightful economic crisis. So like purses were really, really tight at that time, where no one was funding anything.
So wait, was that when you actually did the first quantum Airtight game, or when you were trying to get the second one out the door?
So I had left in 2009 for Valve, and then we started working on Quantum Conundrum 1. And we did some Connect prototypes first, I think, for like a couple months. And then we ended up going to pitch Quantum Conundrum after we put together a demo. So that must have been like 2010. So we were like going out and looking for money in 2010, and people really didn't want to fund anything in 2010.
That must have been. Did you pitch us at Disney when I was there? Is it?
Yeah.
Did you pitch us that game?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
To Alex?
Actually, we got really close with Disney, and then something happened, but I don't remember.
Was Alex one of the persons in the room?
I don't think so.
Well,
I remember chatting with you then, and it must have been about that game. Yeah.
Maybe.
That's how old I am. I can't remember.
Alex was holding the
It's fine. I wasn't really. I remember reading a contract at one point that was like a Disney contract where it was like IP ownership rights in perpetuity throughout the universe, or like some really interesting line where I was like, the universe?
That's Disney.
Yeah, right.
That's Disney.
The universe. Just in case we do colonize Mars. We need you to know that we still own this IP on Mars.
That's amazing.
They will. Okay. All right.
That's a core memory, is that line in that contract. I will never lose that.
All right. Well, so after Airtight, which I am visualizing in my head as a it kind of indie style or smaller developer. You've been at a few larger kind of Fortune 500 size companies that do video games. I've been at some of those companies too. But you were at Amazon, you were at Google, you were at EA, and most recently at Microsoft.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there's any threads or like things that you learned through those experiences, or things that seem they have in common, or things that were struck you as different. Like I definitely know some real differences between Microsoft and Disney. Both fantastic companies, but when I was there, they operated very differently. I'm just kind of curious if you had experiences at those companies that sort of gave you insight into either the culture or how they think, how they work, that were notable.
Yeah. I mean, I think EA, even though it's a big company, is very focused on games and interactive entertainment. And that is very different than, say, a Google or an Amazon. I think Microsoft is closer to EA in that they've been doing games for a really, really, really long time. But if you look at, say, Amazon or Google trying to get into the game now, which is a lot harder and more costly, I think it was very different. They're tech companies where they are looking at what games are and they're like, why can't this be done in 6 months? Right? You can just do this in 6 months. And we're like, no. but all of our other software that we put together, well, we can do this in 6 months, right? We just put together the software and we get it out there. And, why is this taking 3, 4, 5, 6 years?
Write a spec. Vibe code.
Just get it done. We're like, particularly Amazon was interesting because they wanted to build their own engine. And so they took CryEngine and worked out a deal with Crytek and were building on top of that. But in many ways, there were big components of that engine were started from scratch. And so we were building games on a thing that was like, building the train track while the train is moving type of feeling to it, which was interesting. And again, the question of why isn't this done yet? And we're like, well, but because it's not, it's just not. And so that was kind of interesting. Additionally, as well, it was sort of a similar feeling with Google where, again, they build software really quickly. And they're able to get it out there, but games are just such a different beast entirely because it is so interactive and it has this artistic component and this narrative and story component. And there's so many disciplines that need to come together in order to make a game. It just takes exponentially longer than, say, making Gmail. And it just was not something that clicked for folks there. And then, obviously the pandemic happened and everyone was like, oh my gosh, we need to batten down the hatches, right? And so that's unfortunately where Stadia went. So it was interesting.
Oh, that's right. So you were there. You were at Google when Stadia. Were you there when it launched, or like in the run up to getting? Were you working on games for Stadia?
Yes. Yeah. So I was doing two things while I was at Stadia. The first was working in publishing as a design director for publishing. So we had a portfolio of, I believe, like 14 titles that we were overseeing and making sure they were going to hit quality and working with these really great indie teams. And some of those games have since come out since Stadia closed, which I'm like super stoked and excited that it happened for them.
They came out for other platforms like post Stadia?
Yeah. Which I'm like, thank God. Because that was like one of those things when Stadia shut down. I was like, oh, what about the game teams? That made me really scared for them. But quite a few of them actually were able to release their titles afterwards. So, which is great. So yeah, I started at Stadia because Jade Raymond had started the games division for their first party titles and for publishing. And so she asked me to come because I had worked for her at EA. And so she had asked me to come and help them spin up their LA studio for Stadia. So we went there, initially started in publishing just to make sure that the games portfolio they had was doing well. And then, Shannon Studstill, right? Shannon, Sony Santa Monica, like God of War games. She was like head of the studio, head of Sony Santa Monica. She was lured over to Google, and she was going to start a studio. And then the pandemic hit. And they were like, "Well, we don't really have any resources to give you." And we're like, "What?" So I ended up. She convinced me, like her Jade convinced me to start a little incubator team. So we ended up taking a lot of Google semantic ML tech and sentiment analysis tech, and we were building this really awesome digital creature that, again, will never see the light of day. But it was using a lot of the tech that like people are really, really into now a few years ago to make synthetic characters. But yeah, it's fun. A lot of the reasons why I went to the companies that I went to was because I wanted to play in the tech playground of they have all of these new and up and coming tools like AI and cloud, and having the tiniest engineering background that I do have, I always thought that intersection between future tech and the creativity in making games was a really interesting space to be in. And so a lot of the jumps that I've made have been to chase that tech.
Right on.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Cool. Are you still excited about AI stuff now that it's kind of gotten a lot more attention, at least from like investment community?
Yes, some of it. I think it's such a tricky subject, right? I think it's good for lots of things, and it's less good at some things when it comes to games. And I think we often underestimate the cost of how much it is to do any of the generative AI technology. That like, yeah, it might be cheap now to use ChatGPT, but if you have it in a video game, and how many times are you going to run the generative tech per frame tick, right? That's going to get expensive really, really fast. And so I think we have to be smart and deliberate about how we use the technology and how we think things through. I mean, cloud is sort of in a similar situation too, as well, where it can be cost prohibitive to like run your entire game in the cloud and then pipe it back down, right? And we just aren't at a point yet where that tech makes sense at a large scale. I sort of see it similar to Netflix, right? Like when Netflix first started, they knew that they were going to stream their movies and TV over the internet, but the tech wasn't there yet. Like pushing those packets was just not feasible yet. And so they sent like literal DVD packets in the mail.
It was awesome. I loved it.
Until the tech caught up, right? And I think we're there with a lot of AI and cloud tech right now.
Huh. Okay. So that makes it sound like you're still kind of a believer in that Stadia model, but there's some catch up still.
Yeah.
Like on the latency side or the cost side to make it practical. Is that why Stadia, like what I got very excited about Stadia, and the part of the demo that I was really excited about was the fact that you can basically have this little, like short little Google URL, and that was your launcher. You could text somebody the launcher to a game, and they were in the game. They were in the game with you. It's like that, like removal of friction to getting into a game. I just thought was potentially super impactful. And so I guess I was a little surprised that it sort of felt like it soft launched and then disappeared. And do you know what happened?
Yeah,
what happened?
I mean, I think it was a combo platter of pandemic and just a lot of fear across the board, for not just Google, but like everywhere was just really, really afraid. And for Google, they have an interesting relationship with content. I think they know how to make software really well. I think they know how to make consumer products pretty well, but games was a unique beast for them. And I know that they have sort of similar feelings about YouTube, right? Where they see YouTube as a platform where other people can go and make content. But for them to generate the content, they're sort of like lukewarm on the idea. And I think if you look at patterns of Google's behavior, they'll go all in on content. Yeah, we're going to make a whole bunch of content. We're going to spin up YouTube studios and all this other stuff. And then they'll be like, well, this is all really very expensive to make the content. Can't we just have users make the content? And then they start to spin that down. And then it comes back around and they're like, obviously we need content for our platforms. Let's make some content. And I think they kind of like ebb and flow with the way that they view content. And I think for them with games, I think there was probably a little bit of sticker shock because, I mean, games are, they're not cheap to make anymore, unless you're talking like, to indie folks, right? Like jamming together games.
They don't have the scarcity mindset over there at Google, huh?
No, they don't. And then again, crossed with the pandemic, right? I think that really scared everyone. And I think there was a point in time where they're just like, you know what? I think it's time to abandon ship. And we need to focus on our core line of products and make sure those are going to weather the storm of the pandemic where we don't know what's going to happen over the next few years and how long this is going to last. And so I think that was a huge part of it where they were just like, do we want to continue to invest in this? I don't know. Everybody's trapped inside their homes. This is really scary. Right.
It is interesting to me because, Xbox could have gone the same way. I mean, like Microsoft is very much, but when I was there in 2001 when it shipped, and it was big giant software company that builds software, not content, and made this big investment and didn't necessarily win, but has really stuck in and grown, and it's a meaningful part of the company now. And it's just a very different trajectory outcome, even though faced with some of similar challenges along the way. It's just kind of interesting. There.
Again, I think the pandemic was really the nail on the coffin for Stadia. I think, there were some growing pains in terms of understanding the gaming audience. I think there was some maybe a lack of understanding of how to sell this as a product and what the value of Stadia was. I think, initially when they pitched it and announced it, it kind of almost felt like, oh, well, they've got this controller and the controller is the Stadia, right? It's the controller and this little dongle. And it's like, no. It's the fact that you can play your games anywhere that I believe, honestly, is the way the industry is going and has been going for a really long time, right? I think hardware is becoming increasingly more and more expensive. And I think it's players are trying to find games on the devices that they're already on, like their PC or their phone. And so this idea of, well, you can have your games with you, and it's this sense of ubiquity that I think was right on the money. I think how they pitched it and how they communicated what the unique value proposition was, they could have done a little better. And I think with time, they would have gotten there.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Also, just similarly, it feels like Microsoft's probably going in a similar direction, which is less about the hardware.
Yeah.
I think everyone's going that way because again, it's to the point where like this next generation of software next generation of hardware is costing the same as buying a mid-range PC, right? So at that point, why not buy the PC?
Yeah, good
So
point.
I think I really truly fundamentally believe we're at this like paradigm shift in the industry that we all saw in 2007 with the iPhone. Like there's going to be something that fundamentally moves for us in the industry. We just haven't found what that exactly is yet, but I feel it's there, right? Like there is a turning point for us.
It's UGC. That's what it is.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about next? What are you excited about? Like, where are you exploring? What are you thinking about? What are you doing next?
You mean like for my career or just like in
yeah, for you? Like, what? No, I mean, I'm guessing you're gonna head down to the Black Forest Cake Bakery.
I was gonna make that
slice of cake.
Just gonna have some cake. Yeah.
But then after that,
after I eat some cake, I don't know yet. So I left Microsoft at the end of last year, and I wanted to take some time to just kind of regroup. Had some stuff like happen with my family, and so I was like, I think I need a minute. And so I'm just now sort of starting to poke my head up and figure out like what is next. So to answer your question, I don't know. I'm open. I think I kind of see myself at a crossroads where I've really honestly been enjoying publishing for the last few years, which sounds weird being a developer. Like most people are like, oh, publishing. That's like game developer retirement. That's so cute. Honestly, it's been fun. There's something really wonderful about being the person holding the bag of money and being like, hey, like having been on the other side of this equation as like an independent developer, looking for money. It's been fun being on the other side and spotting those opportunities where you found that team where you're like, oh no, this team has it, right? And maybe they did one game and maybe it's not the best game in the world, but they learned the lessons from game 1 or game 2. And they're going to make it big on game 3 because they learned stuff the hard way, which sometimes you have to do making games. Is like, you got to bang your head against the wall a few times. And I'm like, well, they've gotten that part done. Great. So like, let's invest in them for their next hit. And then another thing that's been really rewarding about looking after a portfolio of games is you start to notice the patterns of where things can go really great or they can go sideways. And they can be completely different genres of games and play styles, but there are these patterns between all of them where you're like, oh, if we fix this problem here, they won't run into the brick wall. We can like maybe steer them off, just a little bit to the right. And so seeing those patterns and learning at scale some of the lessons that you might not otherwise learn. I don't know how you feel about my thesis here, Alex, like having been sort of in that side. There's something really interesting about seeing lots of games at once.
100%. You when you get exposure to lots of different teams, structures, ways of thinking, genre of games, my time at Disney was very enriching that way. I learned a ton. And it's an extra bonus when you get the chance to amplify another team's work. So
yeah. And then the other crossroad is maybe I start a studio. I don't know.
Do it. Yes, Kim, go. Start a studio.
Let me just have magic money. I don't have that money. I have an idea. I've had an idea kicking around in my head for like the last like year or so, and I've started noodling on it like on my own. Now that I'm like fun employed, I guess. And so I've been
we do have a few investors that listen to this podcast. Ooh. If they want to reach out to you, should they just hit you up on LinkedIn?
Yeah, sure. This was great.
Okay. All right. You know who you are. All right. I hope
I
somebody
didn't mean
pings
to
you.
turn this into a sales pitch.
I did. I want to see your next game, Kim. And we've kept you way
We've kept
over,
you all.
and
We
it was
had-
all my fault with
No,
my horrible
It's your
internet.
internet's fault. It's not your
Yeah.
fault. You had extenuating circumstances.
Yeah, you're too kind. And thank you so much
can't
for
control
hanging
the
out with
internet.
us. Yeah, I wish I could.
that be
Maybe that
nice?
would be a good project. Control the.
Just-
I don't know. That sounds actually evil.
Just gonna start
Shouldn't do that.
installing wires underground, like getting your own internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that called the dark web or something like that? I don't know. All right, so great to hang out. Thank you
This is
again
really fun.
for hanging
Nice
out with
meeting
us.
you, Kim.
And
Yeah, it's good to meet you too, Aaron. Yay,
We'll see you
Houston.
around.
Cheers, Kim.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Fourth Curtain Podcast. Visit us at thefourthcurtain.com to find our monthly newsletter and support the show via Patreon. The Fourth Curtain Podcast is a production of Fourth Curtain Media. Lovingly edited by Bryen Hensley of Noise Floor Sound Solutions. Production support by May Lee with community management by Doug Zartman and art production by Paul Russell. Thanks again for listening.